Hello to you all wherever you are in the world. Thanks to each and every one of you for joining us today for our first ever CGIU virtual event. My name is Maisha Alexander, and I'm the CGIU Impact and Design Manager currently based here in Brooklyn, New York. I'm also a proud member of the CGIU alumni community class of 2010 and 2011 and a former CGIU commitment mentor. The CGIU team is so incredibly excited and grateful that as we face these globally challenging times, we're still able to find a way to come together with experts and all of you for meaningful and important conversations. While we're very disappointed that we didn't have an opportunity to meet many of you in person, we have been so heartened to watch the community mobilize in support of each other and our CGIU staff. It's been with the help of many people across our CGIU community that we've been able to put this event together and bring a new and exciting added dimension to the CGIU experience. Back in March, CGIU 2020 students were challenged to submit a short self-recorded video telling us about themselves, their commitment to action, and their reflections on how the novel coronavirus has affected them and their community. Students were also invited to submit questions on any topic for President Clinton and Chelsea Clinton. During this next program segment, you'll have an opportunity to meet several members of the CGIU 2020 cohort, listen to their questions, and hear directly from President Clinton and Chelsea with their responses. We're deeply appreciative of the students who took time out to put together their video submissions. So, without further ado, welcome to CGIU's first virtual town hall with President Bill Clinton and Chelsea Clinton.
Hi, I'm Maya Yakia. I live in the Netherlands, and I'm representing the Free University of Amsterdam. My one question to President Bill Clinton or Chelsea Clinton is, the COVID-19 pandemic is changing our life. So how can we come out of it while also strengthening our democratic institutions worldwide?
Well, first of all, Maya, I think that's a really good question. My advice, first of all, is to make sure that the kind of good information we've gotten continues when the COVID emergency passes. I think by and large, all across the world, the press has done a very good job in educating people about the dimensions of the crisis and the impact it's having in the particular area they're reporting. I think most attempts at fake news have failed, and we have to keep fighting for that. I think we have learned here the consequences in stark terms of not having good information. Secondly, I think every country should examine its voting procedures and see whether they have done everything possible to make them effective, honest, checkable, and something that will work even when people are homebound. I think that's very important. We just had an unfortunate situation in the United States in a race in Wisconsin where the Supreme Court basically said that the election had to occur on the day it was settled. And thank goodness a large number of people voted in advance. But we don't need to be putting lives at risk to be good citizens. So I think making sure the machinery works and keeping the information flow good and as accurate as possible, I think are very important. Then I believe that the sense that many people must have felt all over the world that they were helpless and voiceless should be overcome. We need more people active in more elections on a regular basis, and realizing that some of these elections will have far greater consequences than we can imagine if anything bad happens. And I hope that this has made everybody listening here from whatever country aware that there are enormous consequences to elections, and it's very important to get it right.
So Maya, I think that's such an important question. And I would just add to what my dad said that I think what has become really evident is why investments in public health are important to helping protect our democracy, as well as helping to protect public health broadly and patient health specifically. So I would hope that kind of part of our response becomes part of our resilience moving forward, including the resilience of our democracy, that we kind of desperately need to be making more investments in efforts like contact tracing, desperately need to be making more investments in efforts to ensure that people who are suspected of having COVID-19 or who have tested positive for COVID-19 can isolate in dignity and with kind of the support that they need while doing so. So I hope that kind of as we kind of navigate through this horrible moment, we are able to take what we are learning now and kind of just embed that in what we expect out of our leadership moving forward, our leadership at the local level, at the national level, and also at the global level.
My name is Joseph Paul Javier, and I'm a Doctor of Pharmacy student here at Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan. Now, as the CARES Act has been signed to support critical efforts at a whopping cost of $2.3 trillion, how can the government ensure that the United States will have the resources to better respond in the future to a crisis like the coronavirus pandemic?
First, that's a very good question. And I think it's important that you understand that there are people in the Congress and in the country, among the governors and the mayors and other officials who want to do that. My first piece of advice is that we should more adequately fund our stockpile. I signed legislation to set that stockpile up way back in 1998. It needs to be properly maintained for this sort of thing. We should have had more ventilators. We should have had a lot more PPE. We should have had a lot more everything. We need those things in the stockpile. Other countries do as well. Secondly, I think we need a much better coordination among nations of the world if we don't want this to happen again. I prefer working with the WHO than fighting with it, just because I think we need to be able to see everybody who's affected with this at first respond the way South Korea did, for example. If so, we'll have fewer people die, we'll have lower costs, and we'll have more people working right through. But you have to be prepared for this. We need to game it out. We need to continue to work on it. I think it should be part of our national security planning as well as our economic planning. And if it happens again, I think we'll be in a position, if we have adequate testing and if we have adequate supplies, to respond much, much more quickly in a way that requires much less drastic economic actions. But it's important to be prepared. And if we invest a little along now, then the next time it happens, in all probability, we'll be able to respond much more quickly.
And Joseph, I would just add that I think while we absolutely need to be doing everything we can to support people today, we also need to recognize the fault lines that this crisis has exposed in our country, the kind of structural inequalities, the kind of deep kind of festering wound of racism in our country, as well as the fact that we have underinvested in not only supporting our health workforce in the way that my dad spoke about, with kind of not having adequate PPE, personal protective equipment, masks, gowns, face shields, but also that we haven't invested enough ensuring that our health workforce, our doctors, our nurses, our respiratory technicians, our hospital administrators, our hospital cleaning staff, our hospital kind of food support staff, that they are both protected but also respected in how much we're paying them to do their clearly essential jobs, but also that we are helping to train the next generation of everyone who will do those jobs in the time ahead, because we don't have enough frontline health staff across the board, and we need to ensure that we have enough frontline health staff for kind of the next time this happens, and that could be, in a year or two or kind of further down the pike, but also so that we are just more robustly prepared for the future, whatever it may bring, and hopefully are learning the painful lessons of this moment to have a more kind of equitable future full of kind of greater dignity and respect, and that we're reflecting our values especially kind of for our frontline health workers in doing that.
My name is Winter Wilson. I am from Athens, Ohio in the United States, and I study at Ohio University. So if I could ask Bill and Chelsea Clinton one question, it would be, what have been your biggest lessons learned and takeaways from your response within the Clinton Foundation to COVID-19?
Well, first of all, I'm very grateful for the response that the foundation's had and our affiliates. My takeaways are, one, I wish we could have been able to do more, but at least we were able to do some very important things, including feeding tens of thousands of meals to people where my presidential library is, in a system that allowed us to prepare and package the meals and then leave them outside the door and have them distributed in a safe and healthy way to people who otherwise wouldn't have had enough food to eat, from poor kids and their families to the homeless to other vulnerable populations. The work that Too Small to Fail did, trying to help parents who don't have kids in preschool or didn't have other schooling options so that they could continue to work on educating and stimulating their kids and maintain a sense of normalcy in the home. I think that's important. I think the work that the people in the Clinton Health Access Initiative did in working with the World Health Organization and trying to prepare them to help other countries is important, because if we don't do that, then these problems not only will unfairly hurt the poorest people on earth, but also come back into America. And then there are other things that our opioid work with faith groups transformed into faith groups that wanted to know what to tell their parishioners about how to handle this and how to be responsible about it. You know, we've seen a lot of press about people having worship services when they shouldn't have. We haven't seen enough press, I think, on the people who have bent over backwards to follow the public health guidelines and protect the people in their care. So I think we have done what we could. As I said, I wish we could have done more, but we did as much as we could, I think, under the circumstances. And in the days and weeks ahead, I hope we'll be able to do more.
Hi guys, my name is Liz Catterall. I study international law and international relations here at the University of Edinburgh. My question to Bill and Chelsea Clinton would be, how do we tackle these mental health crises and how do we deliver the support that people need whilst also ensuring that people are following the guidelines and staying inside?
Well, Liz, I think, first of all, that's a really important question, because we know that for a lot of people, the pressures that they feel will be aggravated by the sense of isolation. I think it's important to develop a lot of instruction for people who are neighbors and friends and relatives of people who have mental health issues about what they can do to support the professionals. Then I think we need to get as much of this service directly online as possible. And we have to have a small cadre of people who are equipped to safely go to the homes of people who have severe problems, who may not be responding online or may not be able to respond online. And I think that we can't forget that the physical challenges can be as grave as the mental ones, but we don't want to put the people's lives at risk who are in a position to help. So in sum, that's what I think we need to build systems for, systems that at least we in the United States didn't have inadequate supply.
And I would just say, Elizabeth, that I think we all can check on our friends and our family. Here in the United States, there's been an extraordinary effort for young people especially to kind of help their older family members, their older neighbors, and increasingly being connected to older people who they don't know and will never meet, except possibly kind of through waving through a window, to be able to go pick up groceries, to be able to go pick up prescriptions at pharmacies. And I think hopefully that sense of community, even in this moment of kind of being apart, but finding ways to be together, hopefully will be good for all of us, for those who are engaged kind of in that work of reaching out and helping and kind of being engaged, and also kind of for people to hopefully not feel as alone, whether they're kind of at the other end of a phone call or a grocery drop off. And I think too, one of the things that is really encouraging, at least here in the United States, is that various mental health professional associations, practices, and efforts are racing to figure out how to augment their already pre-existing kind of telehealth recommendations, rules, programs, options, and to do kind of real-time research and monitoring for kind of what is working, what is resonating, and also what isn't working and isn't resonating, to be able to course correct real time. So I think it's incredibly encouraging that so much is happening, and yet we know so much more needs to happen. And we also know, at least here in the US, we had still an enormous amount of stigma around kind of people raising their hands and saying, I need help. And kind of insufficient resources for even those who were kind of raising their hands and saying, I need help. So hopefully, kind of as we move through this moment, we'll continue to obliterate stigma and continue to build capacity and competency so that everyone who needs help for any reason, whether that's kind of in one moment or over a lifetime, is able to get the help they need.
If I could just say one last thing, one of the things that I've learned from this is how many people needed protective equipment that I hadn't thought of when it started. And I think it must be true in Edinburgh, where you're in school, and it must be true in every country represented here. But the first responders in New York, where Chelsea and I live, the number of them whose lives have been put on the line because they had to respond to situations, whether they're police officers or ambulance drivers or whatever, that they weren't prepared for, is staggering. And a lot of them have gotten sick. And I think this just hammers home the fact that when this is over, we need to basically prepare for this. Who's going to do what, where, and we need to make sure that everybody's got the reserve of protective equipment they need to give people the ability to deliver in-person mental health interventions if necessary, as well as to do whatever we can online.
Well, and I would just say too, we also here in the United States and in Scotland and everywhere need to be thinking now about what we need to ensure that we're able to provide at no cost, seamlessly, kind of at high quality, as supportive services to all of our frontline workers who are often being sent kind of into work, whether that's kind of into a hospital, on an ambulance, on a fire truck, kind of in a grocery store, at a pharmacy, with insufficient protective equipment, and certainly over the last kind of weeks and even months with kind of insufficient information. And we owe an enormous, incalculable debt of gratitude and solidarity to everyone who's been on the front lines. And we need to ensure that we're helping protect kind of their mental health today and over the time ahead.
Hello everyone, I'm Carrie from Hong Kong. I'm currently a final year student in Ningnan University. Regarding a question to ask President Clinton, well, we all know there has been so many issues that we have to make effort to tackle. But when thousands of issues come across together, how will you prioritize those issues or choose to deal with some of them first? How would you make it?
Well, Carrie, I think there are as many right answers to that question as there are kind of people listening to us today, or as arguably as there are people in the world. I think we have to, each of us, think about how do we kind of match what we kind of care most intensely about with our talents, and then hopefully kind of use that kind of intensity of feeling, whether that is anger about kind of something that we think has gone wrong, or kind of hope for something that is going right, and kind of where we think we can make a difference, and then hopefully use that to prioritize where we spend our time and energy, and then kind of think more broadly about kind of what do we want to see more of in the world or less than, and then use that to help us prioritize kind of what other organizations we may want to get involved in, kind of what work do we want to support, what candidates do we want to vote for, and kind of just think about kind of how we prioritize in a way that hopefully feels empowering and good for us, and also hopefully kind of helps create an impact in the world.
That's a question I ask myself all the time, partly because I'm so much older than everybody who's at CGI U, but also because one of my strengths and weaknesses is I'm interested in everything. And I always want to do something about everything I can. What I try to do is ask myself, first of all, is this challenge something I can do something about? Do I know enough about it, or can I get enough partners to help? Can I finance a meaningful response, or can I do something that will be a model that then I can turn over to other people? And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. For example, I'm very proud of the work we've done with small farmers in Africa, but I don't have enough money to do it for millions of farmers. And it's unlike healthcare. The development of small farming has not been amplified as it should. And so it's frustrating to me because I'm loath to give it up, but I know that with the limited funding I have, it might be better to put it into something else. So there really are difficult questions that have to be answered here that aren't always easy to answer. I also have to face the fact that the political climate in America is slightly different than it used to be, and well, that's obvious. So that has affected, I think, the range of things I can do. I have been, however, richly blessed to stay busy. And we do especially a lot of work in our region, in the Caribbean and Latin America. I have still a working group in Haiti that's been working now for more than a decade. We've raised well over $500 million to invest in Haiti, and we're still doing things through political ups and downs and all kinds of upheavals. We work in the areas of the Caribbean that are particularly vulnerable to hurricanes. In the case of the Bahamas, have also suffered an earthquake. And we try to get people together and work together in a way that both strengthens disaster response, but ongoing governmental processes, something we need to do in the aftermath of the COVID-19. So I try to do something that I care about, I know is important, and I believe I can have an impact. I'm not particularly interested in doing things where I think I can just give a speech but can't really have an impact. So I think all of you need to think about that. If you're younger, advocacy is important, and standing up and being heard is important. But at my age, I think I should put most of my energies into doing things that will actually have an immediate impact on people's lives in a positive fashion, and that's what I try to do.
Hello everyone, my name is Veronika Bondarovich, I am from Belarus, I study at the University of Edinburgh. If I had the opportunity to ask President Bill Clinton one question, it would be the following. How do you help yourself in times of hardships?
Boy, that's a good question. For me, I'm lucky. I have a wonderful, brilliant wife I can talk to. I have, as you just saw, a special daughter and a son-in-law I can ask for advice, and I have a wonderful group of close friends. And I've been blessed in that, because one of the things that happens as you get older is you have to say goodbye to more and more people who are really, really important in your life. But I still have a group of friends that I rely on, that I'm in regular contact with. And if I'm feeling low or feeling perplexed, I can tell them without thinking I look weak or foolish or worrying about reading something embarrassing in the press about it. I just say it. I also have certain sort of wisdom books that I refer to from time to time. I go back every couple of years and read the Meditations of Mark Aurelius. I read Thomas à Kempis's Imitation of Christ. I read The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, a Toltec shaman and a doctor. I read things that I think make sense, that help me kind of get reoriented. And I think all of us need that. But I also try to wake up every day reminding myself of what a blessed life I've had, and that I still have my health and my brain still works pretty well. And I need to get up and get the show on the road and not worry about the obstacles, just go do what I can. And it should be like that for all of us, I think, particularly those of you who are younger. You have no earthly idea what all is going to happen to you, good and bad, and in your life. And you have to embrace your dreams and know who you are, and then accept the victories with a grain of salt and the defeats with a grain of salt, and just do the best you can. And one thing I find helpful is reminding myself every day about how I keep score. How you keep score in your life is really important. If you have a financial setback, your friends will still be there for you. If you have a work setback and you still got your ability, your brain, and your heart, you can start again. If you make a mistake, you can own it and go again. This is, for Christians, a season of Easter. I used to joke with people, but not joking, that I might have found myself to my faith even if I hadn't been born a Christian, because we believe in a God of second chances. And in all major faiths, in some way or another, that's acknowledged. I saw it in Passover, because my son-in-law is Jewish. I have a lot of Muslim friends. I have friends who are Hindus. One of my friends regularly sends me wonderful poetry, now a century old, from Rabindranath Tagore, the great Indian poet and philosopher. So I think that you should draw on all these things. And you just got to remember, life is a gift. And it doesn't take long to live a life. So you might as well enjoy every day you have and take the tough days as a learning experience and go on.
I'm Talia Bales. How can we young people continue supporting our communities and lifting up their voices to make sure they're heard during this global pandemic?
Well, I think that's one place where the social media has been a real blessing. I'm sure that, like all of you, I have been profoundly moved by social media messaging, which has reached me from all around the country and from as far away from South Africa and Asian countries, people getting their messages out. Here's what's going on. Here's what we need. Here's what we're trying to do. I think that that's the best thing that young people can do. You can help people of all ages and different conditions who have something that others need to hear, make sure it gets to the right people and to the public at large. And I think that the traditional news media has also done a pretty good job of scouring the social media, trying to find things not only that will keep us laughing, although there's been an abundance of that, and that's been one of the unforeseen benefits of this otherwise terrible plague we've been dealing with. But I think that we're all a little more sensitive than we once were to how much the rampant inequality in our society extends to people's sense of isolation and not being heard. I'll just give you an example. We just assume that this is an urban disease, or we did for a while. Now it's beginning to hit rural areas in America. And there are a lot of people there who say, look, there's just one or two people or one or two businesses in this town. If they're gone, they're gone. The whole town will die. We need to know about those places. We need to have a whole strategy for dealing with places that are like the children we tried to help, too small to be left behind. And I think that these are the kinds of things that young people are especially adept at bringing to the attention of the larger public.
I think that not only do we have a responsibility to really listen to one another right now here in the United States and around the world, we also have a responsibility to learn from one another and learn with one another, whether that is kind of on the science side of trying to understand this horrific disease that we still know so little about, to how do we really stay connected in our families, in our friend groups, kind of in our broader communities, even while we stay apart. And I certainly think we have a responsibility to listen to, especially the very youngest among us. I mean, I know as a parent, I'm kind of really listening to my children, not the baby, he's only 8.5 months old, but to my 3 and 5-year-old, because they're in a period of real uncertainty. I mean, we've not kind of been in school now for more than a month. Like, they haven't seen their friends in more than a month. I think we're at 6 weeks now. And so, really ensuring that we are listening to each other, kind of leading with compassion and kindness and empathy, especially for our youngest among us, but also really for everyone everywhere, because I think the only way we're going to be able to continue to kind of move through this moment is to be as flexible and nimble as possible, and to be learning whatever we can. And we're only going to be able to do that if we continue to reach out and listen to what people in our kind of closest families and communities can tell us, but also kind of what is really working for people across our city, across our country, and across the world.